Okay, I just started the recording. With your kind permission, shall we start the program?
Sure, please.
Yeah. So, very good evening to all, particularly today's speaker, Professor Shoham Chakrabarti from Department of Electrical Engineering, Indian Institute of Technology, Roorkee, and Chair IEEE Vizag Base Section, Dr. Lakshmi Narayan Garu, and Chapter Exam members, Dr. Ashwin Shankar, Professor Banu, Professor Vakula, and my dear participant. I welcome you all of you for today's expert lecture. And this is a topic, one of the emerging research areas going on, with in view of different domains, like particularly renewable energy and then electric vehicles and all. And in fact, I see this is a multi-level inverter, power electron topology. It's very much a demand in the particularly power electronic sector. So many of the researchers, young researchers, they are working on it. I hope this topic will attract the many attendees today, and then it will help us to, to improve their research work and then further. Okay. And we will give you opportunity at the end to interact with the speaker if you have any doubts and clarifications, and that way we'll make this program. So with this introduction, now we'll start the program. Now I request Dr. Ashwini to introduce today's our speaker to the audience. Thank you.
So very warm welcome to the participants of today's session. So I would like to introduce Dr. Soham Chakrabarti sir. So Dr. Soham Chakrabarti is serving the role of Assistant Professor in Electrical Engineering Department, Indian Institute of Technology, Roorkee. Prior to this, he has worked as a research associate in University of Kent, UK, and has been invited as a visiting researcher in Lodz University of Technology, Poland, and has a visiting associate professor in RMIT University, Australia. Had obtained his PhD degree in control systems from Indian Institute of Technology, Bombay, India. He has been teaching nonlinear systems and robust control, sliding mode control and observation, advanced control systems, analog and digital electronics as a part of his appointment in Indian Institute of Technology, Roorkee. He is also doing research in sliding mode control, multi-agent systems, and learning-based control. So coming to today's talk, so the abstract of the talk is the capacitor voltage measurement is important for all-round operation of modular multi-level converters. However, in a typical MMC, there may be hundreds of sub-module capacitors, and measuring each voltage requires high-performing measurement system, which must be ready to supply all capacitor voltages on demand every switching period of the MMC. Understandably, such a design become bulky, costly, as well as less reliable. On the other hand, estimation of the capacitor voltages from measurement of only few quantities of MMC is a more logical as well as sophisticated approach, which reduces cost and makes the design more compact and more reliable. In this talk, Professor Soham Chakrabarti will discuss some of the recent research in the direction of capacitor voltage estimation in MMC from their team's work in Electrical Engineering Department of IIT Roorkee. So thank you very much, sir. Over to Sandeep, sir.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Ashwini. And now I request Dr. Chakrabarti to start this session. Thank you.
Sure. Thanks everyone in the IEEE Vizag Base section for inviting me to give this expert lecture, and it's a very warm welcome that you have given to me. This is an expert lecture in the topic of capacitor voltage estimation rather than in modular multi-level converters, because as you can see from my bio which Dr. Ashwini read, so I am a person from the control systems background, not the power electronic converters background. But I am using my knowledge on control systems to facilitate this particular working of this particular system, and this has given me a exposure also in this particular domain. It is very interesting. The system itself is very interesting, and our work has resulted in some fruitful output which we expected from the system. So let me go into the talk right away. So please expect this to be more oriented towards the control system approach rather than the power electronic converters, though I will touch briefly on the system and let us all understand, come to a place where we all have a common understanding of how the system works, based on which we will be designing the estimator or the observer for the capacitor voltages in the MMC. So I normally start with giving a brief introduction of the place I belong to right now, which is IIT Roorkee and Roorkee itself. So just a brief tour for all of you, all of the participants. So IIT Roorkee, if you know that it is the oldest institution in India, established in 1845 as the Thomson College of Engineering, and it became IIT Roorkee in 2001. Previously, it was University of Roorkee, College of Engineering Roorkee. All these different names were there. Finally, it became IIT Roorkee at the turn of the century in 2001. And in Roorkee, we don't have, it's a small town actually, we don't have much here, very old population living, but with the IIT and there is also an army cantonment. These are the two large establishments here in Roorkee. But a very interesting fact is that the Ganga from Haridwar, the Roorkee is actually a place in very close to Haridwar. So all of us know about Haridwar, Dehradun, so it is almost midway between Dehradun and Haridwar, and the Ganga canal flows through Roorkee. It is not the main river bed, but it is a canal. But most of the Ganga water is diverted through this canal. So this is Ganga river, you can say, that we have a chance to be in very close association with the river here flowing through Roorkee. And for the Ganga canal, actually, for the water to flow, there is two magnificent structures of engineering, which are called the aqueduct. So these structures are built in Roorkee. So this is a magnificent feat of engineering, civil engineering, basically. And to build these things, actually, to make this canal and build the make the way for the river Ganga, the Thomson College of Engineering was set up, basically. So you can see what is the aqueduct and what is the beauty of this. So we know that in the previous picture, you can see this river, this canal is on the ground. So it is a canal bed is cut on the ground. But here it is like a bridge which has been created and the river flows through the bridge. So the river is carried over the bridge, and underneath the bridge, there is another river flowing. This is a very dying out river. It's only a monsoon river, a local one called Saloni River. But to make the path straight and smooth, so the Ganga had to be taken over this river, over this local river, and for that purpose, an aqueduct is created. This is like a bridge, but not to carry vehicles, but to carry the water. So you can understand the amount of pressure that it has to sustain over the years, and this cannot fail anytime. So the amount of engineering calculations and design that has been spent for this marvelous feat of engineering. And there is not just one, there are two aqueducts. So this is the old one and this is the new one. So you can see the rush of water here, which is hitting one of the pillars here. So this picture I have taken myself, and this is one available in the internet actually. So with this, I would end the small tour for Roorkee and IIT Roorkee, and we'll begin our research with this famous statement that knowledge has a beginning but not an end. And this is very good for us actually in research job, because it never lets us go out of job, because there is always something new to find, right? So what new we found in this research. That is what we would wish to talk about. Before that, I will just introduce myself and the work that I am doing. So you can find my work in this website. It has not been updated recently, but most of the work you will be able to find there. And I am doing theoretical research in sliding mode control and its applications in multi-agent systems and learning-based control with applications in the fields of multicopters, mobile robots, then as you can see, power electric converters, which I will be discussing here, and any such complex systems which whose modeling is very difficult or whose models we don't know. So we are trying to tackle those sort of systems with these theoretical aspects, with this theoretical knowledge that we have. And the MMC research team, so it is not a single person's endeavor, but it is a joint work. As you can understand, I am only a person from the control systems domain. So the person who is leading the work from the power electronics domain is Professor Anubrata De here. And the research scholars who are involved are Rupak Chakravarti and Jagannath Samantare. So Jagannath is my research scholar working under me, and Rupak is working under Professor De. And together this work has come about. So they have set up the hardware also in the laboratory, a small prototype hardware, and we are doing testing of our algorithms in simulation as well as in hardware. So we'll begin now with the main part of this lecture. The contents will be a brief introduction on the MMC system and what estimation algorithms are there in the literature. I will not discuss on that, but just mention which are there, which are available, and I will just briefly describe two of our own designs, which work has already been published. Actually, there are 4 works published already. We'll discuss 2 of them here, and also a comparative analysis is there between these 2 works. So that would comprise this lecture. So I would move. Yeah. So the basics of the MMC. So what is the MMC? This is a converter topology, multi-level converter topology introduced by Professor Marquardt in 2003. So you can see that this topology is fairly new. So like over a decade old, just a decade old. So, and lots of work are coming up with the application of this technology in various domains, mainly power system domains in HVDC. So to draw power from offshore to onshore. So this in this type of works, these multi-level converter topologies are very much useful. And in this particular one, which is modular one, because you can see these modules in the arm of this topology. So in this topology, there are this top arm and the bottom arm, and each of the arms are consisting of several submodules. N number of submodules are there, and each submodule can have a typical topology, and one typical topology is the half bridge topology actually, which you can see here. And in this how this submodule contributes to the functioning of this MMC, you can see that if your current is entering here, and there are two switches with the capacitor. This is the submodule capacitor. There are 2 switches with the capacitor, and the 2 switches are paired up in such a way that if one is on, the another is off. So when this is on and this is off, then what happens? The current enters from here and it bypasses the capacitor, because this switch is closed and this switch is open. So it comes through here and goes out. What happens then? This current does not go through the capacitor. So it passes through the submodule, right? But it does not pass through the capacitor. So, and if this is on and this is off, then what happens? The current comes through here, goes through this, goes through the capacitor and then comes out. So in that situation, this submodule, the capacitor in this submodule is in the circuit. So one can say that this submodule is, the topology of the submodule is in such a way that either the capacitor is in the circuit or not in the circuit. Okay, is either bypassed or it is included in the circuit. So this is how the modules contribute to the overall function. Now, as you can see, this capacitor either connected in series or bypassed, and there is some inductor also here, inductance along with some resistance. So this forms the entire one phase of the MMC. This is a typical MMC phase leg. This is the structure. And in this side, you can see the DC link voltage, and at the midpoint, there is a ground, and here is a pole voltage coming out, one phase A. So what is the modularity of this topology? What is the modularity? So you can see that this particular module of the capacitor and so many modules are connected in series. So what happens that if any capacitor is destroyed or something bad happens in this module with the switches or the capacitor, then we can simply replace the module and we don't have to do anything else with the entire circuit. A very small portion of the circuit can be simply replaced in a modular fashion. And of course, you can understand the multi-level part, because the output voltage is created through these multiple levels of these capacitor voltages. So when a capacitor is included, when all the capacitors are included, it gives rise to the maximum voltage. When none of the capacitors are included, it gives rise to the minimum voltage. So in this way, you can understand and there are different intermediate levels of the voltage depending on how many modules are connected. So in this manner, this MMC actually works. Now, that is the advantage also. So this is the advantage, the modularity and scalability. So modularity advantage we can very easily understand. It helps us in manufacturing the entire system. So we can simply design a small module and give it into bulk production, and then simply connect these modules with one another in series, and our MMC is set up. And when one module fails, we already have a backup module which does not is not very costly, and we can simply replace that. And scalability is, if we increase the number of modules, the output voltage that we can bring out from this MMC will also become larger. So that there is a scalability also here. So this eliminates the bulky DC capacitors and transformers which are normally used in other power electronic converter topologies, and it improves the output harmonic performance. As you can increase the number of modules, the levels become, the more levels you have, then the better the sinusoidal output voltage you will be able to create. So we can make improvement in the output harmonic performance by doing that. And since the harmonic performance is good, we don't need to have a additional passive filter at the output side, and this gains some efficiency, because the loss suffered by these passive filters, the passive filters will obviously give rise to some dissipation of energy. So that is not happening. So we have increased efficiency, and as the voltage increases, the efficiency also is more. And there is flexibility of incorporating various topologies within the MMC, because these modules, actually, this is one particular module which is a half bridge topology, but there is other topologies also which is available, which I am not very conversant about. So we are using in our own system, in our lab and in our simulations, we are using the half-bridge submodule topology. So what is, so this is just one slide to mention about the modulation scheme that we are using. So there are a lot of modulation schemes which could be used in an MMC, and for different like different levels, we use different topologies. For a very high end, so we have a very high voltage output, so we can have nearest level modulation. Then there are selective harmonic elimination and other carrier-based methods are there. So we are using, our aim is in the medium to low range, and we are working in the medium voltage. So we are using phase disposed carrier methods. So this is some diagrammatic like schematic for that, and we will not spend much time on that part because our main intention is in the capacitor voltage estimation algorithms that we have designed. And so before moving on to the design of the estimation algorithm, we need to be very clear why we actually need this capacitor voltage estimation for this particular system. Yes, we can do estimation for any system, but when it is more practical to actually have the measurements, and they would guarantee much the actual measurements would guarantee that the information to be coming in a perfect manner, and we should be using that. But in certain systems, it is not practical to measure the all the states or all the information that we need from the system. And the MMC is a typically such a system, because in MMC we need all these capacitor voltages in the submodule. So all the submodule capacitor voltage information is needed for the operation of the MMC. So to operate the MMC, there are lots of different algorithms working in microcontroller chips. So these algorithms require the information of all the capacitor submodule, all the submodule capacitor voltages. And as you can understand, as the levels will increase, as the number of submodules will increase, then the amount of information or the number of measurement units, measurement circuits we would need will also be increased there. So each measurement circuit comes with a sensor and its signal processing unit, and this makes the submodule bulky. And also, as we have more number of such measuring units, we have to rely on. So actually, we are making the system less and less reliable, because at any time, any point of time, if one measuring unit fails, we would not be in the knowledge of what is happening. So like if it fails, the algorithm would utilize an information which is inaccurate, and that would result in an improper functioning of the entire MMC system. So it is less reliable in nature, it is bulkier, and also as you keep on increasing the number of measuring units, your cost is also getting increased. So all these factors taken up in consideration, it is like wise, it is a wise decision to have estimators, capacitor voltage estimator as an algorithm. Estimators are algorithm running in computers. So as an estimator algorithm rather than actual measurement unit. So this is like a common sense which says that if we can have a capacitor voltage estimation which is good enough, which is reliable, which is working perfectly, the algorithm must be a good algorithm so that we can rely on it, then that reliability is more than the setting up all the measurement units and relying on their function on their functioning, because their hardware, they are bound to fail at some point of time. They may get overheated. Many things can happen. Whereas this capacitor voltage estimation is simply an algorithm. Once it is formulated, it is validated theoretically as well as in simulation, in hardware it is validated. The algorithm cannot be changed, which is sitting inside the microcontroller. So it will remain the same. So it will give the output reliably all the time. Now you can ask, what is the need for the capacitor voltage information? So for running of the entire system, there is this two very important algorithms which are running inside inside the microcontroller, which is circulating current controller. There is something called the circulating current controller, and there is also something called the capacitor voltage balancing algorithm. So these two are very important in order to run the MMC, and both of these will need the capacitor voltage information for all the capacitor, all the submodule capacitor voltage information it will need. And also you can understand that the output voltage that we get is actually obtained by adding up the varying number of this active capacitor voltage in series. But for that, actually we don't need to measure each capacitor voltage. It comes directly as a summation at the output. But for running the MMC, these two algorithms are important, which require this capacitor voltage information. So once we are very clear now that an estimator is a design of an estimator is a wise decision, and we should go for that. So obviously some researchers already have taken this challenge, and there are lots of such observers. Observers and estimators are same things. So the other observers have also been there. So you can check these references which are given at the end of this presentation. So these are already proposed by many researchers, but what we found out, there are certain limitations of these observers. So some of them assume that the capacitor voltage error is bounded. They assume the bound to be known actually. So obviously the capacitor voltage error will be bounded because the actual capacitor voltage value is bounded, and your observer capacitor voltage value initially starts from 0. So the error bound is there, but the error is bounded, but they assume that they know the error bound. Okay. So when they know the error bound, after that assumption, they are designing an observer so that their estimated voltage, capacitor voltage matches the actual capacitor voltage. So this is one limitation we found out. And another limitation which we found out is this one, which basically says that the capacitor voltage of each submodule capacitor, they don't change over time. So they don't change over time. So this is another assumption which is enforced in one of the literature. So this is this is not impractical. Like practically it does not change so much, but they are assuming it to be constant throughout, like k plus 1 equals to k. So you can understand it is like same all throughout. And with this assumption, they are doing the estimation. And some of it was also sensitive to initial current error. So the current which is flowing, we have to take a feedback of that, and it was sensitive to the initial current error. So all these limitations were there, and based on all this study, and we propose some new designs of observers. And one was a discrete time sliding mode observer, and another one was a variable gain discrete time observer. So these two are published. You can see the reference here, and we'll go into the discussion of these two works in some details. So the discrete time sliding mode observer. So before doing any of the design, before coming to any of the design, we have to formulate the model of the MMC. The model of the MMC is very important and to understand, and it is also simple to understand. It does not require great mathematical tricks and all. It is very simple, very standard electrical engineering laws we have used in order to come up with the model. Just simply the Kirchhoff's voltage law that we have used. So you can see this first equation 1 is a KVL in this loop. So here is a, like we have joined this loop like virtually. So this loop we have taken the KVL here. So I will simply walk you through this, and you can see that read through from this part. So when you go up, you have VDC by 2. Then here it is a plus sign and here it is a minus sign for the voltage. So when you go down, so you have to count all the capacitor voltages which are connected, all those capacitors which are connected, only them, and it is come with a minus sign because you are falling down in voltage. Now what is VCU? See, VCU here, VCU is the, so U here denotes the upper arm and L denotes the lower arm. Okay, so VCU is the sliding mode capacitors voltage vector for the upper arm. So all these capacitors which are there, so if you form a vector of them, so VCU is basically VCU1, VCU2, like this, VCUN. So all those voltages in a vector. Now all the capacitors are not connected all the time. So who decides which capacitors are connected? So there is an algorithm which is running, which decides which capacitors we have to connect and which capacitors we have to bypass. So that algorithm gives out a switching vector, switching pulse vector. This is called a switching pulse vector, SU and SL. So this switching pulse vector is simply a vector of zeros and ones. Either one element is either 0 or 1. When one element is 0, that means the corresponding submodule capacitor voltage capacitor is bypassed. So the voltage is not included in this total voltage. And when that element is 1, when the switching is 1, then that particular capacitor voltage is included in this KVL. So you can understand that SU transpose VCU gives the summation of all the capacitor voltages which are presently connected. So that comes with a minus sign. Now next, what is happening here? Next, there is a fall in voltage RA, IU. So this IU is passing through the RA, and then here it is VA, and you have to come to 0. So you are falling in voltage, and you are having minus VA. And this is what LA DIU DT. You can take it to this side, and it would come with a minus sign, and you can see that the IU passes through this LA, falling down, so that minus LA DIU DT is also here. In the same way, you could analyze the second equation also with this loop in mind, and remembering that positive voltage is in the upside and negative voltage is the downside. So that is the convention we have assumed in modeling this. So this is the thing. So this is how the equations would come about. Very simple KVL equations. Very simple KVL equations, no averaging, nothing has been done. All the time the KVL is to be maintained. So these equations is almost, so you can say that the model is almost the same as the actual hardware, though we know that it cannot be, but the model is almost the same as the hardware, the behavior. Now what is this? This is the voltage. This VCU is the capacitor voltage vector. So what is the voltage in the capacitor? So it will depend on the capacitor value. So C dV dt is basically I. C dV dt is I. So what here we are seeing, this VCU is basically a vector. So this is a n-dimensional, capital N-dimensional vector, and C dV dt of one of these capacitor will be equals to I when it is connected to the system, when the I is flowing through the capacitor, only then C dV dt is I. Otherwise, it is there is no change in the capacitor voltage if the current is not flowing. So if the current is flowing, so if SU is 1, then you have C dV dt as I. When SU is 0, you have C dV dt equals to 0. That means dV dt equals to 0. So this is what you can understand the equation for the capacitor voltage variations. And the output we have taken as the currents IU and IL. So with this model now understood, what is the approach to design an observer? The standard approach to design an observer is to simply copy the model as it is and then introduce some terms with which we would be able to make the error system between the observer and the actual model converge to 0. So we'll go into that. But before that, I think, yeah, we have a discretized model. So we have discretized this. This is the continuous equation, as you can see in continuous time. We have discretized it first. So we are working in the discrete time domain. And our sampling time is tau is very small actually. And that's why a simple shift operator discretization is quite valid here. We don't need to go to Euler discretization and all. Simple shift operator discretization, that dx dt equals to xk plus 1 minus xk by tau. That's all. So that discretization we have applied, and these are the equations that come. So we will work with these equations as the model of the system. And what is the approach now? So this model is copied with the states changed as estimated states. So you will see this I things with an I hat, V with a V hat. So in this way we have gone about, and you see that the upper arm. So there are two observers, as you can understand here. I hope the current like the power got cut, and I'm not sure how long my laptop will be able to serve with battery. So in case I go off, okay, luckily it came back again. So sometimes this happens and we get a shock. Yeah. Okay, no problem. We'll continue from here. So this is, so you can understand now looking at this dynamics that this 7 and 9, these are the upper arm dynamics, and they are not mixing with the lower arm dynamics 8 and 10. So upper arm and lower arm are separated from each other. They are not entangled. Okay, they are separated from each other in the way the model has been formed. So we can design the observer for one arm and the other arm separate. So this is the design that we follow, and you can understand very well that the design that we have for the upper arm, same design will work for the lower arm, because the dynamics is exactly the same in the upper arm and in the lower arm. Just some plus minus signs is here, VA plus and VA minus. That's all the difference. No other difference is there. So if you simply write VA equals to minus VA, then the work is finished for the lower arm dynamics and the lower arm observer. So anyway, the upper arm observer dynamics, you can see that we have simply copied the upper arm dynamics, and like we have given this estimation, these hats are the estimated states. This IUQ, this is what we know, this is getting measured, this current is getting measured, something we have to measure. This current is the output we have defined for us, and by definition the output is available with us. So this IU is there. These are the terms which we introduce in the observer, and we have to design these terms so that the observer states approach the actual states in some reasonable amount of time, so that we can believe or we can rely that this VCU hat that we are getting from the observer is the actual capacitor voltage, actual submodule capacitor voltage. That is the purpose. Actual capacitor voltage we are not able to measure directly, so we are setting up an algorithm, and in the algorithm we are having an estimated voltage value, and if the design of the algorithm is correct, is in a proper way, then this estimated value will reflect the actual value in a certain duration of time. So that is exactly what we have to do. So we have to design, the design is here. Design is in these terms USU and UVU, USL and UVL. These are known as the observer injection terms. Like in controller design, you have the controller coming up. Here it is called the observer injection terms. So with the help of this, what happens? Now you design the error dynamics. So you get the error dynamics. So by the design of the observer, when you compare the observer dynamics with the actual dynamics, then you get the error dynamics. So you see that error is defined with tilde on top. The error is defined as estimated signal minus actual signal. So when you have the V tilde Cu k plus 1, using this is from 9 is actually the system, from the system model, and 18 is from the observer model. So when you subtract these two, then you get V tilde Cu k plus 1 as simply V tilde Cu k plus UV. This is the equation now for the error system. Similarly, for the this is for the voltage error, capacitor voltage error, and similarly you will also get a current error. Current error is also seen, and it is found like this, is obtained and it is found like this. Now our task is to design UVU and USU, and USU we already proposing like this. Now this we are proposing with an inspiration from discrete time sliding mode reaching laws. In discrete time sliding mode reaching laws, there is a proportional plus switching reaching law, which has the form. So if we use I tilde as a variable, then it has a form like I tilde k plus 1 is equal to this alpha I tilde k minus beta sine I tilde k. This form it has, and it can sustain an additional term in that particular equation. It can have another additional term. Even in presence of that additional term, this sort of a reaching law is supposed to make the variable come to 0 in some finite time, come to a bound about 0. So following that principle, like getting inspired from that idea, this had been proposed. But our task does not end with just proposing this. We have to actually make sure that the error dynamics actually goes to 0 with the design of this USU and the proper design of UV. So what is the design of UV? This is still not known. Just note that this alpha and beta values are like this. Alpha is between 0 and 1 and beta is greater than 0. So what we have to do, if any of us have had a brief course in control systems. So generally when we wish to show a system in state space to be stable, asymptotically stable at base, then what we do, we form a Lyapunov function. So this idea of a Lyapunov function is there. It is very simple. So we construct a function which is a positive function. So positive function means you can see that this function that we have formed is always positive because it is a square function of the error terms. The error I tilde and V tilde Cu, these are squared, and this particular Lyapunov function is formed. The small vk is the Lyapunov function. Now, if delta vk is vk plus 1 minus vk. So if we can show that delta vk is always less than 0, it is always less than 0, that means what? That means the value of vk is continuously decreasing. Now, since it is a positive function, eventually the value would come to 0 because it cannot go to negative side. So the least value that it can attain is 0. And since it is continuously decreasing, it will come to 0 eventually. So this is the idea of Lyapunov based proof. So here we form a Lyapunov function, which is a positive function, and we try to show that delta vk would be less than 0. And to make delta vk less than 0, we now design those observer injection terms because those are in our hands. So we form them in such a way that delta vk would become less than 0. So this is the philosophy. So now we are working with that philosophy, and you will see a lot of mathematical jugglery we have to do in order to implement this philosophy in practice. So when delta vk, we have to calculate delta vk. So I will not go into the calculation. So this is a equation that has come due to the calculation of delta vk from these equations. So as vk plus 1 will involve, as you can understand, iu square k plus 1, v tilde square cu k plus 1. So these k plus 1 terms will be involved, and these k plus 1 equations were there already here, and these are used, and this lengthy right hand side is coming out. Now, so this is an entire task that has been done by my research scholar. Every credit goes to him because this is simply theoretical control research. So you have to play with mathematics, that's all. So the playing with mathematics means juggling with terms and like spending time on it, looking at it, and how he came about with the solution is maybe even he does not know. It just comes by working through these things. So this is how theoretical control research works, and we cannot really explain how this actually came into our mind, but it came and the solution was there. It worked. Mathematically, we could establish this delta vk less than 0. So what he did, so after so he first, the last two terms he rewrote like this. So this is simply writing a square minus b square in the form of a square minus b square in the form of 2a minus b a minus a minus b square. So this and this LHS and RHS are same, identically they are same. So in that way it is expanded in this manner, and he has put it here and utilized USU also. USU has equals to this has been put in this term, in this term. I think this one particular term was left. This term is left. So this term he has not touched. In the other terms, this USU had been put. Now you can see that this term is here, this, and the rest of the terms has been simplified. So these terms has been simplified. It has come like this, and that there was a tau square term. This is here. This term is here, and this term also has come about. This term is here. So only these two terms, USU has been put, this value has been, this equation has been put, and we have found that this is the thing. Now when we look here in this equation, we can see that this second and third term are negative. This term is negative, this term is negative, because of the choice of beta and alpha values. Alpha between 0 and 1 and beta is greater than 0. Because of that choice, these two terms would be negative. So we don't have to worry about these two terms. They are contributing to the negativity of delta Vk. So we want delta Vk to be negative. They are contributing to the negativity of delta Vk. Now, what about the other terms? So the remaining terms, so we are leaving the first and fourth term for the time being. Remaining terms we look at. So if we can make these remaining terms 0 somehow, then this equation simply becomes this much. So we are looking at these last 4 terms, actually this, and this, and we enforce this to be 0. Like, we are not enforcing, we are seeing, we are trying to find out in what condition it would be 0. So this is how the mind of the theoretical researcher works. So he is trying to find out now the condition in which these 4 terms would be 0. And so the rearrangement of this in 2 sides leads to this, and further what he does, a simple assumption has been taken, because tau is so small that tau square term can be neglected. So this is neglected. Then he discovered that this both side has this b tilde cuk plus 1 terms. So if these 2 terms has to be equal, then the coefficients of these terms will also be equal. So the coefficients will be equal, and from that this equation came about. Now this equation is basically suggesting a dynamics of b tilde cuk plus 1. This is suggesting a specific type of dynamics of cu tilde k plus 1. But already from our error dynamics, a VCU tilde k plus 1 was already there. So if this dynamics can be equal to that dynamics, then our job is done. Then everything will fall in place, and these last terms will be equal to 0. So what was that equation? You see this. This is the equation. And it should be equal to, it should be same as this equation. So in the right hand side, V tilde CUK is already there. So UVU, which was there, now has to be equal to this. So this actually gives rise to the design of UVU. So all this analysis, all this mathematical analysis gives rise to the design of UVU. So with UVU, this, so last 4 terms would be 0. Now we put USU equal to this. USU we put as put this in this equation, and we see that delta VCU tilde k, this thing will always be greater than beta in magnitude. Simply try it out. Here you see alpha IU tilde k, so 1 minus alpha IU tilde k, and 1 minus alpha is positive because alpha is between 0 and 1, and another term is plus beta sine IU tilde k. So if IU tilde k is positive, you can understand this is beta plus something positive. And if IU tilde is negative, in magnitude it is beta plus something. So in magnitude, the delta V tilde CUK is greater than beta. What does that mean? The first and fourth terms, you see beta square minus delta V tilde CUK whole square. So if this is greater than beta, these 2 terms together will always be negative. So these 2 terms negative, these 2 terms negative, these terms become 0. So what is the final conclusion then? In total, delta Vk becomes less than 0. So our proof is done here. Our mathematical proof is finished. So as I tell my research scholars that if it is proved mathematically, it is bound to work in simulations. In hardware, I cannot guarantee, because hardware and model, the simulation model and the hardware is different. But here, as we can see, as we could see, that the model that we took is from very standard electrical engineering laws. So unless there is a very there is really some problem in the hardware, it should work also in the hardware. So with that confidence, we applied this algorithm in the simulation, also in the hardware. And these are the various parameter values which we used. So for your perusal, and you can see that different levels are used, because in simulation we could go up to certain values, whereas in experiment we could not do, because the experiment we don't have such high valued system, we could not set up in our lab. So we have a smaller system, and we are working in 3 submodules per arm. So in one of the arm we have 3 submodule capacitors, and the results are quite good. As you can see, this is a simulation results. With the line voltage between phase A and B, load current, you can see almost sinusoid. But the arm currents, these arm currents are not very, these are jittery, but the arm currents are not what bothers us. The current which comes out is what we are concerned about. Now you can see the estimation. This is the phase A actual voltage across capacitors of all the 3 SMs, and these are the observed voltages. So you can see almost the same, almost same. And the error, you can see, this is of the only one capacitor we have shown here, the error. And zoomed in this region, you can see that this is the shape of the actual capacitor voltage and the error. So in this region, if you further zoom, very slight change is here. So as you can see in this region, this is for the 3 submodules of the top arm of the phase A. You can see all the 3 errors are within the range of 5 volts, which is very low compared to what is the base value. The base value is here 3650. This is like the base value. Compared to that, 5 volts is negligible. So it is quite a good result we thought of, and then we went ahead into experiments. And this is the experimental results. These are the pole voltage, which you can see here. This is the load current, again very nice sinusoidal load current we are getting. And this is the estimation of one of the capacitors. In this case, the middle capacitor we have shown here. And the error is, like you can see, between -1 and +3 volts, and which is quite small compared to, like here it is around 66 probably. Now you can see that when we introduced step change in the DC link voltage, then also the tracking of the error, tracking of the capacitor voltage by the estimated voltage was quite nice, and it is quite fast also. It does not take a long time to again come to the tracking of the voltage. So the errors, you can see, it is between 2 and -2 volts. So quite good. So this ends with the discussion on the discrete time sliding mode observer. Let me see. So I don't have much time, but I'll be able to finish in 10 minutes. So because this is simply a repetition now for the modeling part, you can see the same model. This is another observer design, variable gain discrete time observer, but the model is the same. So I will not discuss in the model, discretized model, again the same. Observer dynamics also, the design of the observer is also the same. You can see minus USU plus UVU. However, the design of these terms would be different. That changes the observer. So the way we designed USU and UVU earlier, the same terms will not be used here. So what are the terms that we would use? So you can see here we are coming up with the proposition that USU should be this 2 alpha minus alpha square IU tilde k. In this, so the only one parameter is there. Previously, alpha, beta, both parameter were there. Here only alpha is there. U view is similar. So previously also what we found out with all that mathematical jugglery was that U view must be this thing minus USU. Here also it is the same. And we formed the same Lyapunov function we have formed. In the same way we have proceeded, delta Vk we try to find out, and this is the equation we formed. And if we use this U view relationship with USU, this part we can immediately see that it becomes 0 with this relationship. So this part will become 0. So what we are left with are these terms, in which the tau square term can be neglected, and U view also having a tau term. So U view transpose U view will have a tau square term. So that term can also be neglected. So these two terms can be neglected. What we are left with is simply USU square minus 2 IU tilde K USU. So putting the value of USU as proposed here, delta VUK becomes this equation. And here, since it is again further simplified like this, and since alpha is between 0 and 1, we can easily verify that this part is positive. So the entire thing is always negative. So this formulation, this mathematical proof was more elegant in the sense than than the previous mathematical analysis, because it shows you very quickly that it is less than 0. Previously we had to do a lot of mathematical jugglery, but that only gave us an experience in order to redesign the entire thing in this manner. So the experience got developed, and we could make a more sophisticated approach in the design of the observer. And also this is more practical because it has only one parameter to choose. Previous design had alpha, beta, both you have to choose. Here only one parameter you have to choose. And you can see that alpha that we have taken here is 0.3. And for the DTSO we are comparing with the previous design, we also choose as 0.3 the alpha, and beta we take some other value. And now this is compared in simulation only. The experimental results are not shown in this presentation. Now you can see that this is for the variable gain discrete time observer, 3 capacitor voltages and their estimated voltages are shown. Red one is the actual, blue one is the estimated, and you can see that so well it tracks. And the error is also quite less. So this is about the sliding mode one, and this is the variable gain one. So the error bound is quite less, as you can see. And this is a quantitative analysis. Some quantitative terms are used, quantitative parameters are used, like integral time square error, integral time absolute error. So all these are measured for all the submodule capacitors 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. So only I think 3 of the submodule capacitors in an arm it is done. And you can see that this VGTTO is always having a lowered value, which means that it is performing better than the DTSM. The quantitative performance is also superior for the variable gain discrete time observer. This is our setup on which the experiment has been run, and this is the workstation. Simulations and experiment both are run from here. And this is simply a schematic diagram of the entire workflow of the algorithms. And the hardwares that we are using, some MCU and another FPGA, a DSP and an FPGA we are using. DSP, in the DSP we are doing the modulation and the circulating current controller, as well as the observer is running in the DSP, and the this is the capacitor voltage balancing algorithm. which is running in the FPGA. So it requires, because these are like two different types of algorithm which requires some switching, like specifications are there. So we needed two different things, one DSP and another FPGA for running these algorithms. Our published work so far are all in conferences. However, there is work sent in the journal in like multiple stages of review we have crossed. So we are hopeful that we will get some publication in journals as well very soon. And the work is quite exciting. It has given us a lot of confidence to go into this type of application of the theory into practice in a very complex system, and it is working very well. And some of the references that we have discussed in this presentation are shared here. So thank you for staying with me, and if there is any questions I can quickly answer, then I would love to take those up.
Thank you very much, Dr. Chakrabarty. And it's a nice session, and I see the deep knowledge in this algorithms building. And you have shown the very good validation between the simulation and then hardware experiments also.
Thank
Now
you.
I will make the participants to give the option for speaking. Let me also, I will stop the recording also at this moment.
Sure.